All right, it is 3:30 on the nose, and we're doing our darndest to keep going and on time, even with a packed schedule. So welcome everybody. This is marketing and development stories from the basement, or development and marketing tales from the basement. There is actually politics about which order they get said. Um, I want to give a warm-hearted welcome to Jennifer Turner and Danielle Dove from Indianapolis Repertory Theatre here in town. And my clock in the background, this is live TV after all. If you can go to the next slide real quick, just for the, there we go. Yep, real quick, just in terms of online etiquette, we all know all of this by now. If you can keep yourselves muted until time for Q&A, that would be great. Keep your video off unless you want to, give us some emotive feedback along the way. You can rename yourself in Zoom if that's helpful for you. You can also turn on captions. This is being live captioned, and we are recording for future posterity. If you have any questions along the way of a technical nature, you can do a private chat to me. Or if you have questions about content, you should direct those to the whole group or to Jennifer and Danielle. And with that, I'm going to hand it off to the two of you to take it forward. Enjoy.
And I'm trying to, I'm trying to manage all the buttons in front of me. All right. So going back, thank you, Sarah. Thank you for the introduction. My name is Danielle Dove, and I am the Director of Marketing and Sales at the Indiana Repertory Theatre. I am a white female. I am wearing, my favorite colors are white, red and black, so I'm wearing a red blazer. I'm actually in a red dining room. So I am thrilled to be presenting with my fabulous colleague, Jennifer Turner. We appreciate the Indiana Arts Commission for bringing us on to talk to you all today, as well as for pivoting in this moment, in this pandemic, and offering the Indiana Arts Homecoming in a virtual setting. So we just thank you all so much. We also want to say thank you to Bonnie, our captioner, for being here and making this accessible for other folks. And I also just wanted to just say, if you are so inclined, turn on those videos. We want to see your lovely faces. We want to see your reactions and hear from you. And if you don't, that is fine too. As Sarah mentioned, Sarah mentioned earlier, we do usually live and work and play in the basement at the IRT. We are not here in that basement at this time. Normally we have in pre-pandemic times, marketing, development, education, and teleservices that do our best for the theater from the basement. And so we're not telling spooky stories, although sometimes marketing and development can be spooky in nature, but we're not telling those spooky stories from the basement. We're actually sharing stories about our work and play in the basement from our lovely home. So I will just mention, thank you again for being here with us today. And Jennifer's going to share with us what we're going to talk about.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Turner. I'm the Director of Development here at the IRT. Well, technically, I'm a white woman in my spunky leopard print dress in my living room, but we are delighted to welcome you to be a part of our session today. And what we are going to do today is we're going to give you a little intro to our organization and sort of who we are in the community. And then we're going to talk to you a little bit about teamwork and communicating for the win, because it requires a lot of collaboration to serve the mission of our organization. And then we're going to talk to you about some pandemic reimagining. What has this last 6 months been like? What are the next 6 months looking like for us as we head into our 2020-2021 season? And along the way, if you have questions, please put them in the chat box. We are happy to answer questions as we go along. We will also make sure to leave time for questions at the end. But we want to engage with you and make sure that we are serving whatever your goals and needs are out of this session as well. And I will turn it back over to Danielle.
Great, awesome. Well, thank you. Well, it is my great pleasure. You know, you've hopefully read the bios about who we are, but we're going to share a little bit about each other. And I have a great pleasure of introducing you to Jennifer Turner. Jennifer is our Director of Development. We are so thrilled about her work at the theater, and that I'm just going to go ahead and say, one, yes, she manages and leads all of our fundraising activities. That is no small feat. And major milestone alert, she led the charge for IRT's Front and Center Capital campaign. That campaign was for the long-term sustainability of our organization. That campaign actually raised $20 million, $1.5 million over its $18.5 million goal. So that's huge. So that wrapped up this year. Small little feat in a pandemic year. Jennifer's warmth and her compassion can be felt when walking into a room, even if it's a Zoom room, and her knowledge of the IRT and the passion for the organization only is rivaled by our fearless leaders, which we're going to talk about those fearless leaders in a couple of minutes. Her work with our donors is authentic, and her desire is absolutely unparalleled. Her desire to care for them is just as authentic as her desire to care for her friends. And I will say, I should know, in the 3.5 years that I've had the privilege of working with Jennifer, we have become very dear friends. And that is with a lot of communication, a lot of relationship building, a lot of groundwork. So it hasn't just come overnight. Jennifer lives in a beautiful historic home in Bates Hendricks in Indianapolis. She blazes new trails, both in her professional world as well as her personal world, blazing trails. She does recharge by hiking in the woods, also enjoying walks and local coffee shops in Indy, which we just hopped on and talked about 2 shops that she visited today. So I'm going to mention that, Jennifer. So we survive by coffee and wine.
Indeed. Thank you, Danielle. And I would like to take the time to introduce Danielle to you. The key to success in both marketing and development is the ability to connect to the community. And this is a skill that Danielle has in abundance. Danielle always describes herself as a proud Kentuckiana woman, and we do forgive her loyalty to UK. Danielle originates from Kentucky, and she began her career there, and her career passions have included everything from the arts to the humanities to food access. And I was delighted the day that Danielle came aboard the IRT and I was able to call her my colleague. Danielle manages everything from the curb to the curtain at the IRT, which is our front of house, our ticket office, every experience a patron would have until they take their seat into the theater, or for this season, until they click the link to log into our performance. So we are excited to have Danielle managing all of those opportunities for our audiences, and she has been adopted by 2 personality-filled dogs, Sugar Pop and Moon Pie Clyde, and has made the Indianapolis neighborhood Irvington her home, and her backyard has become my personal refuge during these pandemic times. And Danielle is a vivacious force of nature, and I am thrilled to have her as a collaborator and a trusted friend.
So Jennifer, 2 things I'll just mention. I'll forgive you that UK mention, although art is my number one. Art is my sports ball. So there. But the other thing is that of my 2 dogs, one is here, one is at summer camp. So I'm trying very diligently to keep them quiet. So we'll just see if they like to make an appearance. I hope that they do not. So Jennifer, tell us a little bit, which I'm going to forward along in the slides here, about the mission of the IRT.
So the IRT works each season to connect to the community in new, exciting ways through the of live professional theater, which is going to pivot a little bit this season. It is designed to serve a vast multi-generational audience across the state of Indiana. And we are led by 2 dynamic women. Janet Allen is our Margot Lacey Eccles Artistic Director, and Suzanne Sweeney is our Managing Director. And both women have worked for the organization for over 20 years and bring a wide variety of experience to their leadership roles. They've also taken on a number of roles within the organization over the years, which has come in very handy this summer as we have all had to do new things. We produce, in a typical season, we serve approximately 100,000 individuals from across the state. We serve approximately 40,000 students from 52 of Indiana's 92 counties. And we do this through a mix of programming that includes anywhere from 6 to 9 plays in a given season. And we do a mix of works that are classics, as well as stories that reflect a variety of communities, often underrepresented on stage through our inclusion series. We also have our Indiana series, which is a growing list of plays that we have commissioned and created to reflect our Midwestern experiences. Included with this programming is also community discussions, artists in the classroom experiences, our Young Playwrights in Process competition, which works with youth across the state to develop their own plays, and a host of other engagement opportunities where we work with community collaborators each season to take the themes of our play out into the community and foster discussion and impact. And I will turn it back over to Danielle so she can give you a sense of I think we have a poll coming, Danielle, right?
Yes, absolutely. So we do have a poll. We actually want to get a better sense of who is in this Zoom room. So we want to take a moment and see what hats you wear out in the room, in the world, and others. So I'm going to, okay, yes, so I'm going to read this out. We're going to ask, to which arts identity do you identify? Development, marketing, education, artistic, funder. I wear many hats, which I realize we all actually wear many hats. And also right now, I think that the job description, the line at the bottom of the job description that says other duties as assigned, that actually goes up to the top in these days in this pandemic world. So I'm going to give a few more minutes, but it looks like, all right, so we have, oh goodness, we've got, I wear many hats. And so that doesn't, I know that means a lot of different things. So many hats. We also have some development, marketing folks, education. Good, the artistic folks stayed out. So, you know, unless you many hatters are artistic folks, which we appreciate your work, but we can talk about artistic folks. Just kidding, we wouldn't do that. But we want to talk about, and thank you, Sarah, I'll go ahead and end that poll. So in terms of, so marketing and development, you know, sometimes the ugly truths with marketing and development, we actually, you know, maybe don't work so well together, or we work in silos, or there's competition. This poll is coming, it keeps coming back up. But so sometimes there can be competition between the departments. There can also be some analyzing of who is spending, who also is earning. And to be perfectly transparent, we don't have time for that. We didn't before, we absolutely do not now. What we do have time for is building authentic relationships, being honest about the work that we're doing, being honest with each other about our priorities. Also, you know, we have been a robust staff and team at the IRT, and we've had to take hits like everybody else. And so with smaller teams and mightier work, we've had to make sure that we were authentic. So we have absolutely been working to break those silos and create cohesive strategies. Again, this does not happen overnight. And I'll also mention, to be clear, we're both revenue generating departments, so that works in our favor. I have been a part of other organizations, and, you know, again, there's some competition. If you do not have this competition, kudos to you. So I do just want to mention that we're more than revenue generating departments. We're working diligently, not just to, you know, have a transaction or collect payment or to speak at our audience. We're actually actively engaging them to speak into what motivates them to come into the theater, what work they want to see, what experiences they want to have, and how best we can engage with them. So a good portion of our work at the theater, it's not about just what marketing is doing or what development is doing, it's what the organization is doing and what we're doing to the best for the organization. So, you know, a part of that work is making sure that our multi-layered communications about the season, about events, about invitations, about even traffic downtown in Indy or events that are happening in Indy for good or for other, you know, we want to make sure that that information is relevant to our donors and our patrons, that it's timely, that it's engaged, that it's targeted, that it's segmented. Oh my goodness, please segment me. Don't just give me all the communication, but also we want to make sure that it doesn't overwhelm us or our patrons. More importantly, also our teams. We cannot overwhelm them, as we often do, but we want to make sure that we don't overwhelm them, so that we can all work to the better and to the betterment and the good. So Jennifer, tell us a little bit about relationships.
The way I kind of look at how marketing and development work together is that marketing is the micro relationship builder or is the macro relationship builder, and development is the micro relationship builder. So meaning that marketing is trying to build relationships with all the vast audiences that exist in the community, those who already know about us and those who might not and are looking for new ways to engage. So Danielle and her team are constantly working on ways to reach out into the community, tell the community what we are doing, and also provide resources for the community to then speak back to the work that we are doing, so that we can make sure that we are constantly having a keen eye on what is happening with the community and that we are engaging them appropriately. The development side of the organization is then looking at specific individuals and organizations to identify what their passions are, how they connect personally with the theater, and how we can personally connect with them. A lot of that has to do with identifying gifts and resources and information that they can help share with the theater, and how can we engage that in interesting and new collaborative ways. What is essential with that is that then Danielle and I and our teams are working in lockstep with each other, so that the messaging on the macro level and the messaging on the micro level show the cohesive theme of what our organization is doing, and that we are also then information sharing back on the individual and the group level, what the community is saying back to us, because then we can share that information with the artistic team, with the rest of our executive leadership, with our board, to make sure that the mission of the organization always stays front and center in the work that we are doing. How do we solidify these relationships? It is a lot of communication in a lot of variety of ways and channels. In fact, Danielle and I were laughing as we first came on the Zoom that we have been avidly texting each other all day about this and other priorities that are happening at the office. So no method of communication is too big or too small for us, but I'm going to turn it over to Danielle to tell a little bit more about that. And again, I'll just say before I turn it over to Danielle, if anyone has questions as we're jumping through these different conversation areas, please don't hesitate to put it in the text in the chat box, and we will make sure to get to them.
Thank you, Jennifer. So I think that the relationship building that has taken time, and Jennifer has been at the Indiana Repertory Theatre for 13 years, in her current role for 4 years. I have been at the Indiana Repertory Theatre. I think if it's, I don't know what day it is, no, I'm just kidding, but it's been about 3.5 years. So our relationship has taken time to build, much like the relationships with our leaders and that of our colleagues. But the relationship building has been quite intentional at the IRT. And even when I was being interviewed for the position, our fearless leader, our direct report, Suzanne Sweeney, who we see your name on here, Suzanne, she made it a point during the hiring process to have me interview. And I had many interviews with the IRT and many different groups, but one of those groups was a small group with Suzanne and Jennifer, making sure, again, that the marketing and development relationship could work and would work. So that, to me, has been instrumental and monumental as we've moved forward. Now, after, it took, I don't know how much time that Jennifer and I got to work together, but before we decided, you know what, we need some additional communication tactics and also some meetings. And so I don't want to just say all we do is meet. We are in a lot of meetings, whether it's in person in the olden days at the IRT or now through Zoom rooms. But for us, we realized quickly, yes, and we've talked about earlier being in the basement of the IRT. We realized that hollering down the hall probably wasn't the most effective form of communication from marketing to development, or, I might have been the key hollerer at my team in terms of like, hey, do you have what you need? But what we decided to do is to get a little bit more strategy in place. And so one of those ideas that we had actually came from Suzanne Sweeney, but was to really gather a core group of development and marketing, but also our ticket office and house staff to look at high level what's coming down the pike in the next few months, what programs, what projects do we need to be aware of? Because Jennifer and I can talk all day and talk to our teams, but if we are not also empowering and educating the folks on our front lines or others, various staff at the IRT, we're not doing a service to anybody. We're certainly not doing a service to our patrons. So building relationships through meeting time and also having set strategy as it relates to the communication. After we set that meeting, which has been helpful and effective, we've had micro level meetings between our various team members. And that has also been helpful because is what it enabled our team members to do, also empowered them to do, make a plan as it relates to our direct mail pieces, email, social, other things, and run with it so that we don't have to spend those time in larger meetings talking through smaller details, although smaller details can and do need to be discussed. But we also, we actually finagled a meeting with Suzanne. And so at some point in time, I would have my weekly meeting with Suzanne, our managing director. Jennifer would have her weekly meeting, and we would hear about these projects or things that would happen or that would need to happen from the development side of things or the marketing side of things. And finally, Jennifer and I thought, why don't the three of us meet? Let's meet, let's make sure that we're offsite so that we can have undivided time and attention. And that has been wonderful. Now, it was a little bit more exciting and fun when we were in, again, pre-pandemic time, say at Lock Miller's, maybe having a cocktail, talking about strategies and plans as it relates to our needs. But what it did is it made us take the time for each other, do a check-in, but also strategically look at what we needed to do for our donors, for our patrons, and make sure that it's cohesive. So Jennifer's going to talk a little bit more about this meeting, but another meeting that we've created, and it's really less of a meeting, it's just more of a convo time, but it's a conversation that Jennifer and I have on a weekly basis, which we didn't have a set time before, before we went work from home starting in March. So she's going to talk a little bit more about that. We also work together on community engagement initiatives, and so we have to be working in lockstep with our, whether it's a big community event, a smaller community event, whether it's a longtime season ticket holder, where we're honoring longtime donors as well as longtime season ticket holders. So we have to be in sync as it relates to these events. So yes, sometimes it's more meetings, and yes, sometimes it's a little bit of lots of over communication, but this is really just the tip of the iceberg. And again, the goal is not just more meetings, it's creating the synergy between and among our departments, and it's truly working. So Jennifer, I think there's another poll coming up.
Yes. This poll is to kind of get a sense of how you feel that you are communicating between marketing and development, also acknowledging that there are probably some people on this Zoom who are doing marketing and development jointly, and they are a one-stop shop. So the choices are, it's amazing, it's pretty okay, I'd rather not say, please help me, and oh my, I'm supposed to collaborate with them. So I would love to get your thoughts on that, and then we will talk a little bit further. All right, I'll give it just another second or two, and then we will call it good. All right, I'm going to just quickly share the results, which shows that everyone feels like it's going pretty okay. We've got some amazing out there, and some people that are just ready to start communicating, which would be great. I would love to, at this point, see from those people who are having amazing communication styles, if anyone on this call would be willing to share one of their amazing experiences that we could all learn from. So if you are interested, you can unmute yourself. I believe, Sarah, that they can unmute themselves, and
they should be able to. They should have control over camera and mic.
Great. And you are more than welcome to share either on camera. We would obviously need to just sort of have some information on you.
You know what, and if not, Jennifer, hey, how about, let me ask you a question. If I'm looking at this poll again, where do you think we were when I first arrived? And you can be honest, you can be honest.
You know, I would say that over the years that I have been at the IRT, we have been everything that was on that poll. I think that there was a point when we had a moment of, oh, we're supposed to talk to each other, to, you know, we're doing okay. And it has ebbed and flowed over the years. But I think that what we have learned is that you cannot over communicate between those two sections of the organization. You also cannot over communicate between marketing and development and then the leadership and the artistic side of the organization, because we all are working together for a common goal. So I think that is a lesson learned, that when you and I both started working together, we learned that having authentic relationships between ourselves also helps spread authentic relationships amongst our team. And that has helped us to, I think, move up to the poll. I would say that we are, you know, pretty amazing most days. I think we all have, you know, we all have those days where it's okay. It's okay.
Or there's a text later, it's like, are you going to shoot me because of this? So yes, those happen quite a bit. So I just wanted to share, we want to share a few examples of cross department staffing and how that can work. And also, I mean, those dreaded Excel spreadsheets. But I also just thought, Jennifer, if I'm going to take a minute just to talk about the structure, just high level, and if you want to also mention of our teams, we have a graphic designer on the marketing side that also does amazing work for the development. So again, it's not marketing, it's not development, it's the organizational. We have an associate director of marketing. We do have a marketing communications manager. We have a teleservices side, house staff, and then ticket office folks. So and then Jennifer, your team.
Sure. On the development team, we have an institutional giving manager who oversees both our public and foundation giving and helps also with some of our corporate pieces. We have an individual giving manager who oversees all of our individual giving. And then we have a data system specialist, and he is the guru of all things that exist in our database because, as we know, in both development and marketing, sometimes the truth lies in the information you can pull out of your databases. So it is a rather essential position. We do cross collaborate a lot between the departments. So what is great is that Danielle's team is not only working to externally communicate, but then there are times when they become our collaborators on the messaging that we are doing as well.
So talking a little bit more about how we're working together. So Jennifer, in terms of projects. So we have a graphic designer who is absolutely amazing. She may or may not be on this, but even if she weren't on this listening in, I would still say that she's absolutely amazing because it's the truth. And she's also been with us for several years and is looking at things from an organizational perspective. And she's in the marketing department. Yet, when she's working on a development project, Jennifer is the director of that project. And so they are setting timelines, they are setting deadlines, they are working together. If Jennifer so chooses, which a lot of times she does, she will route something to me for my editing eyes. But it is, and I think that's a process that we've had to make sure that we were very comfortable with, because a lot of times people want to have ownership of their staff and their teams, and that's just not the best way to be. So we've developed a great system on how we're work sharing and staff sharing, and so I think that's been very helpful. Also from the teleservices side, teleservices does report up the chain to me, and their work is primarily, they do most of the time, it's they're calling about season tickets, or they're calling about single tickets, or what have you, or group sales. And there is time when Jennifer is creating a plan that she is working directly with our team, and right now it's a shop of one because of where we are in the world right now, and she's creating that strategy and then giving directions to that individual. And if I'm kept in the loop about things, but at the end of the day, we talk about kind of sometimes boss lady crowns. Those crowns, you may or may not see them, but they get put away. And Jennifer is then the one who's managing that. So I think that we've had to, from a staffing perspective, but also an ownership of who's on first with what positions or with what projects, we've had to say, you know what, again, this is for the greater organizational good. Also, for my team, when people say, oh, it's my email or it's my project, I love it that people embrace their projects and want to own something, but in the day, it's not my anything. It's it's the organization, it's our project and such. So I think it's also important that we're clear on that. I think the other thing is that while this is not fun and exciting to talk about, but it's Excel spreadsheets, but it's less about the spreadsheets and more about the plan. In marketing, we have a very long and cohesive plan about, spreadsheets rule. Oh, thank you, Sarah. I don't agree with that. I mean, I have somebody on my team who would absolutely agree with that. I just do like it because it keeps us in check in terms of deadlines. And we have all sheets and sheets and sheets of deadlines and direct mail pieces and social media and e-news that are all in one document. So it is our go-to. It is our marketing Bible for the year. It's our plan that we execute. And as soon as development has their plan in place, we lock it in, but we're also communicating about, because again, it goes back to, it does us no good if we are creating a plan and executing it and hitting a deadline, but then something's dropped at the same time from a marketing perspective, something's dropped at the same time that it's dropping for the development perspective. And then we get mixed messaging and confusion as it relates to our patrons, which does us no good, which has happened, unfortunately, in the way back.
Danielle, let me give an example really quick. So recently, because we will talk about this a little bit more in a few moments, we are getting ready to shift to a new season announcement. We just did that on Monday. And as we were sort of preparing for those moments, we realized that, usually a season announcement. It happened the first time back in March. And then we are working from a development side of things for sort of our first appeal mailing, which usually goes out right at the start of our season. Well, this year things have gotten a little bit conflated. So as we were planning our communication strategies, we actually had to sit on a Zoom together and really through the timing and say, okay, we're going to announce the season on this date. We need to give people time to receive that information, process information, have questions about it before, and even maybe follow up with them one time about it before we do the appeal for development. What we didn't want to have happening was that our first communications, as we were plotting out our own personal preferred timelines, would have had things arriving all about the same date, which would be at cross purposes for our organization. So then we were able to pull it together, pull it apart, and really create a cohesive strategy for how we're communicating and what we're putting in front of patrons and donors at any given time.
Thank you, Jennifer. I think the other thing is right now there are outside circumstances like pandemic, yes, election cycle. So things that we would really love to hit about the 1st of November, we don't want to hit from a donor or from an audience perspective. And then, we have to make sure that we're in lockstep with our printer and see how they are doing with their print timelines, but also in terms of the USPS and what's happening with the mail cycle. So we can create all the plans and be communicating, which is wonderful. And there are other external forces that we also have to be aware of. So it's constant communication, pivoting. So let's talk about pivoting, Jennifer.
Well, I would say, if we were going to turn anything into a buzzword during these pandemic times, I think that the thing that we have said most often since March is that we will be nimble and that we will pivot. And I think that the great thing about having a collaborator that you enjoy working with is that when you're trying to figure out how best to move forward and how best to message to our audiences, if you have someone that you are working with that you thoroughly enjoy, you can have those conversations together and get real, and then get real about how we're going to provide our mission to our community. I will say that how we have been pandemic shifting since March is, number one, a sense of humor has been key through all of this, because you can't go through all of the things that we've all been facing in our various communities. I am sure that you are all doing just amazing and massive amounts of work there. So I would like to pass along my thank you for all the great work you're doing in all of your communities. For those of you here in Indianapolis, for all the great work you're doing here and across the state, because your communities need you. They need the service that you are doing. They need the art that we will eventually be able to provide again, the different ways that we are communicating with everyone. So thank you for that. And being able to laugh about it, being able to text Danielle randomly during a meeting and say, what are we doing? Or what is happening now? Or is this really our reality that we're facing? Makes a difference. It allows us to get past that and to move on. We joke that we survive on 2 food groups. They would be coffee and wine. And it just depends on the time of day, which one we are focusing on. We stay in close touch. I think that we have gotten closer by being apart over the summer than we had actually in the office. So we've been talking a lot over these sort of pandemic times about what are the nuggets that we're going to take with us out of this. And I think the constant communication and the ability to be nimble and respond to our audiences and patrons in a sort of the moment fashion is something that we will continue to get even better at, but we've really been able to think thoughtfully about how to do that during this time. And we've been a great reality check for each other for our projects. So Danielle talked earlier about sort of how we silo and we take ownership, but what has been great is when we've had fewer resources at our disposal, we've leaned on each other to remember that Danielle and I are only the director of development and the director of marketing and sales, but we're also patrons and we are also donors. So her perspective on a development project and my perspective on a marketing project can be relevant to each other. I sent Danielle some taglines I was thinking of for our first response piece for the outside of an envelope. And I was like, this is where my brain is at right now. Help me sort of refocus. And we've landed on something that I'm really happy about. And I don't know that 6 months ago we would have done it in that way because we had different sort of work environments that we were in. But now I don't think I would go back to how we did it before. I think that I will always make use of the expertise that comes to the table. And Danielle's team is great. Alexis, her graphic designer, as the graphic designer she mentioned, is great about reminding us of things to keep in mind when we are designing for both development and marketing perspectives. So those moments have been great. Yes, Danielle, go ahead.
I'm going to mention, and I think you hit on several different points in terms of, one, we don't have all the answers, although we would like to, we just don't. We don't have all the resources. Please don't take any more away from us. Thank you. Thank you, world. We have developed and spent time with each other, and then also with our teams and listening to them. I think what this last 6 months has taught us is that if we've had shields and armor on in our previous time in person, those have had to be removed, and we've had to be authentic and vulnerable and listen to each other. And then also, if somebody on our teams or another part of the organization says, why don't you do this, or have you thought of this? You know, we don't have all the answers, but sometimes some of these great ideas. I had an idea from our teleservices manager just last night. I was like, that's amazing. So I think that's been key. I think the other thing is that I will say I regret that a lot of times Jennifer and our former colleague, our production manager, would go and have coffee chats, and I would be invited on those chats. And a lot of times I'd say, no, I'm good, because I felt like I needed to be there. I needed to be there for my team. I needed to like frantically work and do things. But here's the thing is, when you are spending time with your colleagues and when you are making time for them and when you are working off-site, you oftentimes find the solution. Maybe not faster, maybe it's not the most efficient way. Maybe it is, maybe it's something that you come together, but you can remove yourself from whatever is currently in front of you to make that time. And I think as leaders, we have to be able to make that time for ourselves, for each other. So I think that is absolutely key. So,
hey, Danielle, I see that Claire has a question about what strategies could we use if colleagues resist constant communication? And I will say it kind of dovetails with what Danielle was just talking about. We didn't start by insisting on all of the meetings and things like that sort of tactical stuff. What we did is actually started by insisting that we get to know each other as the humans that we are in the room, and then allow those relationships and then the communication to sort of develop out of that. We encouraged our team members when we've had new team members on board to, we get them together with the peer on the other team that they would be working most closely with, and have them go out to coffee and just kind of talk about how their different work styles are. And then once people sort of get the buy-in for why different team members need different amounts of information, then people tend to be more willing to sort of give that information and share. Because at the end of the day, everyone wants the organization they work for to be successful. And it's just about reminding people how to do that. And then us being nimble in the fact that what is Danielle and I's style is not necessarily going to be the style for our other team members, and trying to help them find the right communication style that's right for them. Some people prefer communication via email. They want to see it in writing before they respond back to it. Some people want all of those spreadsheets and want to be able to create that structure and have us all respond back to it. And so what we have done is find ways for each person's communication style to have a place to live within the overall communication structure for our organization. And that seems to have helped foster collaboration and remove some of those resistance pockets.
I think I'll just also mention that just constant emails, because I know there's a lot of constant email. Just emailing somebody is not communication. I mean, unless that's like their preferred, that's how I want to receive information. So I think a lot of times, and I've been part of other organizations that, just because you send something doesn't mean it's been communicated. I think also having buy-in and support from your leadership is key. And if it's a conversation that you need to have with your leadership about, this is why we need to have these. And this is, again, it's not just about meetings. It's not just about creating a spreadsheet, but it's making sure, or having a conversation just about what is the most effective way. And I'm never going to win with Jennifer if I come at it from a, this is about me, this is about marketing, I'm going to win, I'm in control here. That's never going to, that would have been a massive fail. And I'm sure that I have come at you, I've come at you at some point in time, with that thought in the early days. And that is, the that doesn't serve anybody. So I think that is another way. So I know that we're, in terms of time, we want to get to some other questions, but I just want to say, in terms of Jennifer and I will continue these meetings moving forward. We won't just holler down the hallway. And if a colleague of mine asks me to do a coffee meeting, if we're able to do that in the future, or a wine meeting, I'm going to make that time, because that is the best time well spent. Unless a big project is due, or another conversation that needs to happen, because sometimes you just have to say next time. So Jennifer, let's talk a little bit about some of what we've been doing
Sure.
during the pandemic, as well as we'll talk about some plans for the future.
Great. So obviously we have been trying to figure out what does virtual look like for us, and how can we engage in authentic ways. We want to make sure that we are creating space for our community to engage back with us right now. And we have done that over the summer by hosting first we did some Zoom meeting, not meetings, but Zoom room sort of experiences with some of our high-level annual donors. It was a chance for them to hear from our artistic leadership about what exactly was happening with our organization as the season sort of came to a more abrupt what we typically would like. And then we've also done some great work with our actors and getting information out onto social media so that people can re-engage with our art. And we are also just trying to figure out how can we utilize this technology in a way, as we continue moving forward, that is both authentic to the work we do. We are big on the collaboration. If you haven't heard that, if you would have turned that word into a drinking game during our session today, you would be very festive right now. But we want to make sure that we are hearing our community and doing a lot of great sort of community conversations. So conversations we're talking about right now is, as we are announcing our season, how can we really make sure that we are keeping that, what makes coming to the IRT special, feel that specialness, even if we're having to do it virtually right now until we're able to all safely gather. Danielle, you want to add some things in?
Yes. So what we've also been doing, well, one, we've taken a poll. I was just giggling about this and thinking about the words. You know, we have certain words this year that we're gonna we haven't put this out on social media, but the words we'd like to keep and the words we'd like to get rid of this year, like unprecedented, gone, uncertain, gone. I'm still keeping pivot until the end of the year, until my team says no more, or until Jennifer says no more. I think nimble is on your list. But anyways, you also mentioned earlier, you know, this has been a heck of a year, and it's not done yet. And what we also have tried to do is remain very positive, and through social media and with our amazing talented actors that we have, our local or our indie-based actors, we've been able to work with them, and they've shared speeches with us, and we've shared that through social media. And so Jennifer has actually been able to share also with our Repertory Society, our highest level of donors, previews, or, you know, sharing some inside scoop before it hits social, or about the same time. So we've created some different tactics internally. Again, we've had different hats on this summer as we've had a lot of our teams being furloughed. So we've kind of gone back to some of our roots in terms of what we used to do in the olden days with our previous jobs, or you know, a couple of years ago, what have you. So I think we've learned, we've grown, and we've been able to highlight a lot of what our IRT staff, what they've been doing over the summer. So that's been really fun. So I think that there's a lot of opportunity for this next year, and also growth, as we've all learned, whether we wanted to or not, this year. So we are very excited about our plans for the future. And while, like I said, the learning continues, and we're going to be learning a lot this season, we have just announced a reimagined season, which will feature a virtual season. We announced this on Monday. I believe this is Wednesday. I think it's October. So we'll focus on 6 productions. Normally, you know, as Jennifer mentioned earlier, we have 9 productions a season. So we will have 6 productions. 3 have been announced, and we are quickly creating those virtual packages, as well as our virtual single ticket. So and learning, you know, we're still finalizing our streaming partner and such, but more importantly, we are producing in a time safely that we didn't know if we were going to be able to produce. We're able to retain amazing talent at the theater, as well as hire amazing indie-based actors. So it is a win-win for us and a new experience. I think the saddest thing would be for us if we had to shut down the season, which would mean a lot of different changes. So we are thrilled about this opportunity, and we're learning and going as quickly as possible.
We'd love getting to work with our community partner, WFYI, on this and get a chance to work with them in some new ways than we have in the past as well. So they, I think, are definitely going to be our hero hats this year because of helping us make the work that we keep doing, serving audiences. So
I think, yeah, so it's been a whirlwind of time, and to piggyback off what Jennifer said earlier, we know that you all have been in extraordinary times. Maybe that's another word we probably need to remove, but it has been extraordinary times. We want to hear from you in terms of what questions you have for us. If you have a challenge that you're kind of chomping on that you'd like us to help answer, we are here for you. And if not, we can also talk about we've had some good times and we've had some bad times.
So we'll kind of leave it to you. First of all, we will thank you for all being here today. And what other words are we keeping? Danielle, do you want to go first with what words we're keeping?
Definitely keeping pivot. Oh, I wanted to tell a story though, but it's like story time. Pivot, we get to keep. Well, we're learning new terminology, so we're gonna learn all the new terminology possible. So virtual, I think we have to keep virtual because we're actually talking about how we're selling virtual tickets, so we have to keep that. That hasn't gone away. Jennifer, any words on your end?
I think you're right. The words that we'll be keeping are what are the terminology that we're learning as we are going forward. We know how to talk about what we're doing when we bring people into the building. We are learning how we talk about what we are doing when we're bringing our building into people's living rooms. So that will be a whole new set of words.
So question 2, or let me ask this: if there aren't any challenges, we'll ask you all if there is a challenge you'd like us to kind of chew on or talk about. The other thing is, if you have a great idea or great way that you are engaging with what could be a difficult relationship or department, we'd love to hear from you, and you can just either shout it out in the chat or go on unmuted. But I just mention, we talked about earlier being nimble and talking about some of the plans. In the past, we've on the marketing side of things, we worked with a consultant group. When I first got here, we were working with this group, and it was very interesting because they were speaking the marketing language, and there's definitely marketing language and there's development language, and there are tactics that work for marketing to marketing for a larger audience, small audience, and similar or different messaging on the development side of things. So this group was really speaking marketing's language, but it took a lot of time for buy-in on the development side, I think, because there were differing tactics. There were, and not just from the development side, from the organization. We were embracing some new ideas that we had to overcome. The interesting thing is, I think over time, and Jennifer, share if you would like, but we actually had a workshop that we participated in with this former consultant, and you were on board game there, because you bought into this, but also we worked together to make sure that, yes, our consultant was working with us and saying, this is what you should be doing, but it was also with development's input. And it wasn't just, this is what marketing's doing and we're moving forward.
Yeah.
I had a question.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Trisha Hernandez. I'm from South Shore Arts in Munster, Indiana. How are you?
We're doing well. Thanks
Good.
for being here. What question can we answer for you?
Okay, so I'm the Director of Marketing and Development for South Shore Arts and the Northwest Indiana Symphony Orchestra. So my question is, as you're going virtual with your performances, how did you determine your ticket pricing? How did you determine the value that people thought it was worth in order to sell? And have you had any success yet you can talk about?
Yeah, so so it was a formula of crystal ball, magic, 8 ball, magic.
Right.
I'm just kidding. But in terms of our formula, we did a lot of research about what other regional theaters were doing, what the local market was doing, and then also just listening to the national, national news, and coming up with a price point. Now, our single tickets and our virtual packages have not gone on sale yet. They will go on sale November 2nd. If you, I do not have Disney Plus, but I know that Disney Plus is like about $9.99 a month. And then they had live action Mulan, which is not a theater performance, but a live movie. And to purchase that, it was about a $30 extra charge, and people were losing their minds over that. So, that's not our audience, but what we've had to do is kind of gauge, okay, what's the threshold? And then what's the reality of what we can charge? So we are still at the cusp of that learning. It has been very challenging, honestly, because among this group, what we would normally charge $25 to $88 for a ticket, and $88 I think is the top for for past years of Christmas Carol. Our tickets will start at $30 for virtual performances. So
Okay.
that does not cover the cost of a ticket. That won't cover the cost. So it is a challenge, but I can't go out there into the market and say it's going to be $60
No.
because people aren't going to purchase that. So it has
And 25 to 70 and, going forward. So what you're doing is you're taping your performances and then putting them on a link online so they can use a code and after paying and
yes,
get that link.
correct.
And it'll be so the ticket price is per household charge. It is not a per person. So, I mean, that has been a platform shift that we've had to make, because when you come to the theater, each person has to have a ticket scan to get in to get their seat. But in your house, you have one person who will purchase that virtual ticket, but then you could have a household of 4 or 5 people in there who might sit down with you and watch the show. So we understand
That increases value too.
It does.
That sounds like to people that you're getting a little bit more of a value.
Exactly. And so that's kind of how we're also making sure that we're messaging it to individuals, that they realize that this is what they're getting out of this very different experience.
But the challenge is we also have season ticket holders that are amazing, and a lot of them are new. Some of them are new, but they've also been with us for many years. So we've had renewed season ticket holders that we want to make sure that we are offering them, at least trying to offer them some of the benefits that they've been able to enjoy in the past. So that means from a donor perspective, but also a season ticket holder perspective, looking at our benefits, but also we are working diligently on being back in the theater in the spring. So we want to make sure that with our offerings now, our virtual offerings, that they are also that they are benefits to our season ticket holders, that they are enjoying that, but then also, we have the option for a larger audience or a new audience this year with a virtual. And I know, Jennifer, there's a question.
Yep. So Cam asked, how do you approach challenging conversations when you're going to change direction or strategy is needed? And I would say that both, whether we're talking about challenging conversations and internally or externally with our patrons, I think transparency has been key for us, to be as transparent as we are about why we are making the choices that we're making and the reasons that we're making the choices, and just providing people more access to information. So as we've been talking internally about why are we choosing to do the different things that we're doing, we're making sure that between our different departments that we are information sharing, so people know the rationale for why we're pivoting in a different direction. And also, as we are now starting to shift and talk to our patrons and donors, I did back in back in August, I did an interim update to our donors where we talked about, I gave them information about why it was taking us longer to tell them what the next steps were for our season. And it was just trying to provide some transparency into our decision-making process as much as we could. So I think that just being honest with and transparent, even if you don't have all the answers, and sometimes just saying we don't have all the answers as we're trying to shift this strategy forward, especially right now, has proven to be really, really useful. And I know that we are now running close to time. So I think Danielle has just provided our contact information. And if anyone has any questions after this, please feel free to reach out to either one of us or both of us, and we are happy to talk with you further. And otherwise, thank you so much for being with us today. I hope that you found some useful tidbits, or at least had some fun hearing about tales from the lower level. So Danielle, any final comments from you?
Just want to say thank you all again. We appreciate, again, the Indiana Arts Commission for having us a part of this session. Thank you to Sarah. Thank you also to Bonnie, our captioner. We also wanted to mention, we hope that you enjoy, I think there's a final session this afternoon. There's tomorrow's session. So do sign up in advance, stay tuned. We wish you all the luck as you are pandemic pivoting. Pivot's another. Yeah, pivot. We're gonna keep. I get to keep that too. So I mean, it doesn't go away. So anyways, pandemic pivoting as well. So Sarah,
are you gonna put your slides up in the sched for folks to access?
Oh, sure, we can do that.
There you go. There you go. It's hard to do applause at the end of these things these days, but we can all applaud and do our little responses. Thank you so much for a lovely hour together. And gosh, I now want to go out for a drink with both of you, either coffee or wine. It's
Let's do it. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you. You've been wonderful, and thank you for all the work that you're doing on this conference. It's been fantastic.
There you go. Very much. Everybody out in virtual world, I hope you're having a great time. And if, next sessions start in a few minutes if you're staying in. Otherwise, I hope we see you tomorrow. Take care.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye. Thank you so much.